Like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council Workshop for October 22nd, 2025. Jamie, will you call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Bean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Stan.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you. Agenda changes. I know Ryan sent us earlier a request to add something to the agenda, and we all have that information here. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to add subject resolution number 251027-A, split of Fund 592, Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund into Fund 496, Sewer Capital Projects Fund, and Fund 497, Water Capital Project Fund to the discussion items as item D.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any other agenda changes? All right, take us to the public comment for agenda items only. There's no one in the room. Is there anyone online who would like to make a public comment? Don't see anyone. We'll close that. Takes us to approval of the minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for October 22nd.
Or October 14th?
Or for the regular city council meeting minutes of October 14th and the closed session city council meeting minutes of October 14th.
Any questions or discussion before we vote? All right, this is a voice vote. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to discussion items. 6A is milfoil treatment, and I see that the aquatic doctor's rep is here, but Ryan, do you want to tee this up for us?
Yeah, sure, Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. You have Ryan and Ryan on this particular item, and we're here to talk about milfoil treatment for 2026. As you recall, last year, and with aquatic doctors here, there was, questions about, hey, how's treatment going? Are we at a point where we may be able to see kind of a reduction in the amount of treatment that's necessary? And at the time, there was a lot of concern and about water levels, and that lower water levels may actually cause us to have some greater issues and may not be able to kind of cut things back. So happy to report that Aquatic Doctors was able to kind of reduce the amount of chemical that they needed to treat milfoil. And in fact, I heard some really positive feedback from folks this year that things seem to be, the treatments are working and they didn't experience a ton of issues, which is really promising, especially with those lower water levels. So Aquatic Doctors is anticipating, or at least kind of proposing, the same amount of treatment for 2026, with the hopes again that maybe we see a reduction. But essentially, the monetary value of the reduction that we saw this year was around closer to $7,000. So if you'd like, Mayor, we can hear from Aquatic Doctors and kind of get their perspective on how things are going and answer any questions you have.
That'd be great.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate your time. Yeah, Ryan hit it really well. We had a great season. Things went about as well as we could have hoped for. The treatment results were fantastic. A lot of open water out there. Talked to a lot of residents, and everyone seemed to be very happy. The programs really seemed to be on pace with what we expected. We saw about a 10% in reduction in treatment area. So it was wonderful, especially with what he said with the water levels being low. Usually water levels low means weeds are a bigger problem, and we got through that without anything major. 10% reduction in treatment area, good quality results. Same thing is happening over at Douglas as well. Good results, good savings. Program seems to be working well.
Questions, Chris?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will you be partnering, will we be partnering with Douglas again? Are they doing it?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident. We've got everything submitted to them. They've got to do their due diligence as far as voting and things like that. But from the communications I've received with Douglas, they certainly plan and expect to be doing the same program. Like I said, we had the same results for them. We're finally at that point where we've made the efforts to really get control of it, and we're starting to see some reducing of areas and costs. So that's music to their ears, as I'm sure it's a positive note for you guys as well.
Thank you.
Just as someone who has a lot of boats on the water, I've seen a tremendous reduction. We used to get really long stringy weeds that would get wrapped around propellers, and it got to a point where it was just really thick, and we have seen quite a reduction. And I'm hoping that some of the education that we get out there to the public as far as what kind of fertilizers and pesticides that we put on our lawns may help reduce some of this over the years, but for now, I think this has been a really good solution.
Terrific. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Councilmember Dean.
I'm prepared to support it on Monday.
Yeah, I'm prepared to forward it to, it'll look great. I've never seen it look so good as I had this year. So I'm seeing a significant reduction. So hopefully it continues in that direction next year.
Russ?
Yeah,
We
thank-
certainly have every expectation. You know, it's the first couple of years are the hardest because you've got, you know, seed banks and you've got some accumulation. But after a few years, you're starting to make some progress on that. And it certainly appears that that progress is being made and it's starting to show up. So I'm very happy with the results. I like to think that as time moves forward, we're going to continue to improve and improve. And we'd like to think that less and less area will need treatment. But it's really Mother Nature really kind of dictates that kind of stuff. But we certainly are moving in the right direction. We've heard very positive results as well. And I like to think that we're going to continue doing what we're doing and hopefully with the same solid results.
Ryan, Russ Gardner, thank you for coming to our meeting. We had an extended conversation with you and your team last year about the program, and as other council members have expressed, I've seen the improvements too. A couple things. I know Councilmember Peterson asked about the Village of Douglas, and remind me that, and I'm no aquatic doctor, but the way this works is that these can come downstream. So if our upstream neighbors don't treat their area, we could run the risk of getting, that's going to impact us if they don't treat. Is that correct?
The upstream neighbors or Douglas?
Douglas. Yeah, they're upstream from.
Yeah, since you guys are basically adjacent to each other, you guys really have a nice collaboration going. You know, there's a symbiotic relationship where if one of you don't treat, it could definitely impact the other. They're just too close. They're too adjacent, and in those shallower coves and things like that, they potentially could. But like I said, Douglas, as far as I can tell, has you know full plans on continuing and keeping up with it. So I would think that we do split. I mean, I'm sure you guys noticed we split the permit with them, so we save each of you guys almost $1,000 just in permit fees because we're able to do that in one permit. So you do already collaborate on the cost, the state fee for that permit. And then with doing the treatments together simultaneously, you are addressing a lot of those issues that you described. Yeah.
Thank you. Also too, at this point, I know we talked about this at length last year as well, is that this is going to be, and I call it a maintenance issue or maintenance program, basically is what we're going to just be doing over the course of the future is just maintaining and trying to reduce as much as we can. We're never going to eliminate the issue.
Correct. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, on a river like that, you've just got too much flow. You know, there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be things coming from upstream that you can't control. So it will continue to be an issue. But I think that the majority of the work, as far as getting control of it, we've accomplished. I feel confident that, you know, the results speak for themselves. That we have gotten control over it. It's a maintenance issue, and it will be an ongoing process, similar to like a lawn care service. You know, if you don't mow your yard, the grass grows, and if you don't put fertilizers or herbicides down, you get dandelions and crabgrass and all those things. So it is something that Mother Nature will continue to grow. It will need to be maintained. But that's kind of where we're at now. We're not trying to get control over it like we had the previous years.
Thank you. Last question is, because we are in a maintenance program, I noticed on the agreement, we have options for 1, 3, or 5 years. And I don't recall if we discussed that last year or not. Where are we on whether we're gonna look at 1 or 3 or 5?
So that's kind of always been an option that they've had on there, but we've kind of taken it on a year by year
Yep.
basis, yeah.
Would there be, what would be the advantage to, because this is going to be a maintenance program, basically, maybe that's not the right term for it, but would we save money by signing up for a 3 or 5, or do we continue with a year to year? Just thinking about the financial impacts of.
The main financial issue on the multi-year is we hold your prices. Every year prices can go up based on our cost of goods and things like that. When you sign a multi-year contract, you're basically holding your prices. I do put in there a potential 3%, but in 30 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever had to do the increases because our costs pretty much stay very similar. So in other words, you sign a 5-year contract, you're almost certainly going to keep those prices the same for 5 years. We're not going to adjust those and move those up. So you are definitely getting some financial savings, at least some firm numbers for budgeting and things like that. You can definitely plan on no increases. And on our end, it just saves us the idea of going out and doing all new contracts. It's just administrative things that we save time on doing that. So we pass that kind of benefit over to you guys and we hold your prices firm for the duration of the contract.
Thank you, Ryan. City Manager, and I know the Treasurer's on the line. Do you have a recommendation for council on a more than a 1-year option, or do we continue on annual?
I would say, if you're, comfortable that you're at least plan on this for the next 3 years, and continue to do it and are going to continue to see success and good maintenance, I think it makes a lot of, and you're happy with this particular contractor, which we have been, and we're continuing to partner with Douglas. I think it would make sense to probably, keep prices the same, at least for a few years.
Would we want to confirm with Douglas that they're similarly satisfied so that we don't lock into a 3-year that, they don't want to lock into?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm generally supportive of a multi-year contract because this is an ongoing maintenance issue. It's not going to go away. I guess the question becomes, do we get some sort of assurance on volume of product applied? For example, we came in under 7,000 the previous season, but I suppose there's the opportunity if the volume of product kind of that we're going to get remains the same, that they could push out the boundaries a little bit, maybe even, be a little bit more effective. So I guess there's that piece that I would want to understand, but I'm generally supportive of the idea of a multi-year because I know we need to keep doing this.
Yeah, I think what's locked in with the longer term agreement is the pricing of, the product.
Okay.
Not necessarily that we're locking ourselves in or saying we want $70,000 for sure worth of treatment, the next few years. So
Correct. Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, well then, yeah, I'm supportive of that.
Yeah, it locks in the price structure. I mean, for example, if next year is just an anomaly the other direction, say it's just very cold and rainy summer and things aren't growing as well, or as aggressively, and we just don't need to treat as much area, then we're only going to charge you, for what gets done. It's not a matter of locking you into set numbers. We're only going to charge you for what work needs to be done. So the length of the contract just firms the prices. It doesn't firm in, the work being done. That's all going to be identified, and every year it's going to be, surveyed to make sure that you guys are getting the optimal, the optimal service that you need.
All right. Any
And-
other? Go
Oh,
ahead.
just Ryan, I'm trying to remember the number that the Rotary donated to help with the treatment of the milfoil. I thought it was like $10,000. So I know it was money raised from the Venetian Festival and
yes, last year they did donate, $10,000 to help us with the cost. And then, the Outdoor Discovery Center is part of our, us all putting in dollars towards the Kalamazoo River Greenway. They're applying for several grants. One of the grants they're working on right now is kind of a joint application to, assist with costs to combat invasive species, as well as do some education and that sort of thing too. So don't know if milfoil necessarily, we've expressed that milfoil is a big piece of our invasive species treatment that we're doing right now, and would benefit from some dollars to help with that cost. but that's also kind of
Good.
out there too.
Good.
Great. Anything else before we move on?
I have a quick question for Ryan, if he knows. Ryan, is Safe Harbor Tower Marine there in Douglas, it's the southern part of the lake, do they do something separate with you to treat their areas?
Not as of now, nope.
So to Councilmember Gardner's kind of question about, others treating, upstream, I mean, Douglas is doing some treatment, but that's a pretty large chunk of the lake that's not necessarily being treated, so.
We're fully capable and eager to work for them. They just haven't they haven't seemed to jump into that. I don't know if they're getting some residual benefits or kind of where they're at with that, but we're eager to jump in and provide the service if they're willing. We're certainly able.
Madam Mayor, I have a question
sure.
for Lauren. When your boats go around, are they getting hit over there by the red dock?
No, that's not a spot where we see a lot of the weeds. The weeds are more over on this side.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, this will be on Monday's agenda. It takes us to 6B Park Rules on page 15. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.
So page 15. And Ryan, you wanna set this up for us?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor. So your city code of ordinances contains a chapter specific to kind of park and recreation related regulations. So by ordinance, you have certain rules and regulations related to injury or damaging park property, having alcohol in parks, requirement to use waste containers for trash, and some restrictions on types of ball games that you can engage in our parks, and as well as motor vehicles and where they can go. So, and then there's kind of a catch-all provision that basically states that there is the option to create additional rules for the parks, that the city manager could make such rules and regulations, but they're subject to your approval as a city council. So we have rules posted at Oval Beach, Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area. There's a few rules posted out at Mountain Ballhead Park. There's now some kind of rules posted out at Saugatuck Wilds. And I saw that there was some kind of draft rules that were put together several years ago and maybe discussed at a council level, but couldn't find where anything had actually been formally approved. So, staff has at least flagged that there's a need to, if you want those rules to remain, or at least have a mechanism to enforce them, that they be formally approved in one way or another. And then certainly, more recently, there's been questions about whether or not individuals should be allowed to sleep or camp overnight in our parks. And so I've provided some kind of recommended general regulations to or language to address that particular concern. Our parks aren't set up for folks to, safely sleep and camp in our parks. We just don't have the facilities for that particular purpose. There's also times when, certain areas of a park may become unsafe, or there's certain habitat restoration that we're working on, or even a particular tree at Wicks Park that continues to be climbed on. And somebody, I believe, was injured this past summer, or at least got stuck in the tree, and the fire department was called out, and we were kind of asked to put signage there. And so I've created some language here to kind of address, those types of situations that arise as well. I didn't spend a ton of time coming up with any sort of additional park rules. I've just kind of put what currently exists as it stands today that's posted at the particular parks, but open to your feedback if there's any modifications there. And just to note that even if there's not a specific rule that you see in here, and we kind of included it in here just as kind of more of a notation, that there are several other ordinances that apply to your parks, even though they're not mentioned specifically under your parks and recreation ordinances. So, for example, like we have noise ordinances that still could apply within our parks, fireworks related, provisions. Certainly there's a separate provision that talks about requiring Oval Beach passes during the summer, and that's something that would still apply as well. So if it's not an ordinance and you want it to be a park rule, this is really kind of the place where we'd want to put it. As far as enforcement, the thought is really kind of, take the approach of, like we do with a lot of our, potential violations. If somebody's violating something, we want to, if we can, start with some education or ask them to kind of change that behavior. In the case of your parks, if we're seeing a continued issue or somebody not respecting our park rules, it would probably be really giving us the ability to kind of say, hey, you need to leave the park and maybe come back and try another day or something along those lines. Your ordinances actually have, certain, provisions that would either make it a civil infraction in some cases or even a misdemeanor in other cases where somebody can actually be required to go to court and face a judge and that sort of thing. So, and then there's a catch-all kind of provision as well that kind of relates to temporary waivers. Obviously, you may approve as part of special events using these parks in different ways. And so some of these rules in certain circumstances would need to be temporarily waived to allow events so they're not in conflict. So there's some language in here on that as well. So I look to your feedback.
Questions?
Couple of thoughts. I totally endorse giving you in law enforcement an ordinance that you can, leverage to take care of problems. A couple observations though. The overnight sleeping park, based on the conversations this council's had, I don't think any of us, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any of us would have wanted to evict a member of our community, homeless veteran, from sleeping at Wicks Park as he's been doing.
I would,
You would throw him out?
absolutely. I don't
Okay.
think it's the city's responsibility in social services. There are 4 organizations working with him.
Well, yeah, they are working with him, but, I think we all know, because I think they're pretty open about doing the radio show and stuff like that. I think I'd be very hesitant to throw him out without having accommodation for him.
Yeah, he was on Mike's show.
Right,
You know.
right. So I don't think, I'm okay with, I think what it says, no overnight camping, but I can think of situations where, somebody has too much to drink and, they decide to take a nap on a bench or something. Do we want to, have the cops, if they don't arrest them, say, get going, they get in the car and they end up getting in an accident. Camping, I think, gives you the flexibility to take care of a problem. But sleeping, what would this have done to this gentleman? A homeless veteran who's a member of our community. That's the unintended consequence.
Chris?
Concerns me.
Again, I talked to several of the organizations and there have been opportunities that apparently don't work for him.
Yes.
Okay, so at that point, I feel that the city's services are, our job is to take care of our infrastructure, our assets, like the parks and everything. I don't think we certainly should be responsible or start setting up some way to encourage more traffic in the homeless park. I just don't. I think that the sleeping and the camping both need to be made a permanent ordinance. None.
I think if we weren't speaking of a specific situation, say Oval Beach, for example, I would know that you don't sleep on Oval Beach. I would think that would be the same case in all of our parks. So I do feel like overnight sleeping in any of our parks seems like it just seems like a rule that would be at a number of different parks. So if we're not looking at one specific situation, we wouldn't say, yes, you can sleep at Oval Beach. No, that's never, I always was under the impression that you couldn't sleep at Oval Beach. So I'm just saying, in general, our parks probably shouldn't be a place where people sleep overnight.
Yeah, and also, this is a unique situation that we're talking about, but what's to stop anyone else from coming from another city? I understand we have our heartstrings on this guy. Like I've said, he was a friend of my mom's when my mom lived here. I get that. But at the same time, how would that stop anyone else that whether they were a veteran or, for whatever reason, they were homeless, to decide that this is a great place to stay. If I think about it, if I was homeless, I think, Wicks Park during the summer would be a great place for me to, stay all summer, if we didn't have something, enforced. But also we do have temporary waivers, so if, we as a council say, well, we've got a special situation with this person, we're working with someone, obviously he's not going to be there over the winter, I'm thinking, I'm guessing.
I guess I'm just trying to, have a discussion about a real world situation. I think, you know, his name's out there, he's been in the paper, he's been on the radio, so, you know, I previously wanted to be very discreet about his circumstance and treat this veteran, this resident, one member of our community with deference and respect.
Sure.
You know, would this tie your hands to not have the ability to show some grace and let a member of our community, you know, have a place, you know, to stay out of the rain until we can find him? And we've been working very hard. I think everybody's been working really hard to find an accommodation. Would this tie your hands as the manager? You know, would you feel like you were obligated to kick him out? I just, it's hard for me, given how slow sometimes these bureaucracies work, the VA, the On Point, all of these things. I mean, do we kick that guy out? I mean, he's a member of our community. Everybody knows him. He's a veteran. He's got a cat, you know, he wants to be with his cat. He smokes, he needs a place to smoke, and it's been difficult for him to find accommodation. So I would just, you know, I really would just like us all to ask ourselves, would we have thrown him out of our city? Would we? Yes or no?
For sleeping? Yeah, I would.
I think one thing an ordinance would have given us with him is sort of you don't really have an option. I think part of what has been tricky is he has been offered temporary housing and, you know, there are longer term housing options for him and he has resisted those. And so that sort of you know, the leverage we have had with him is weather and winter coming, knowing that. So I agree with you. I mean, I think, you know, somebody's first night, I think we want to allow enough time to get somebody into a situation, but I think it's also helpful if we have a pretty strong incentive for them to take advantage of you know, the services. I think a big learning for me in talking with Ryan and his caseworker is one of the requirements of getting into housing is cooperation to do that. And I think since he has felt hasn't been anything that has really forced him, for lack of a better word, into acting on a plan that would get him. So I agree with you. I would not want to immediately. I mean, I think we want to allow the city or allow whomever a little bit of time to get someplace safe. But in this situation, it's just taken so long and part of it is his unwillingness to or inability, you know, but his not working to act quickly on a plan. And Ryan, disagree with me if you think I'm mischaracterizing that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these are being set up as rules, not necessarily as like an ordinance that we're going to cite somebody for necessarily sleeping. But again, really the mechanism is if somebody's violating one of these rules, not just sleeping, you know, but if somebody's like continuously doing something that they shouldn't be in one of our parks, it's kind of gives us the ability to say, hey, you know, you need to leave. So if they refuse to leave, then yes, it could be a trespassing issue and they could run into some legal troubles, but we're not necessarily looking to write tickets or you know, charge somebody with a violation of a park rule in and of itself as it relates to these rules. Obviously, like I said, there's separate ordinances that cover some of your rules that would come with that. And I would say that your deputies, you know, they were run across this particular scenario. In fact, we had a similar scenario on our old landfill property where it wasn't in the city, it was within the township, but still on our property out there where there was an individual who had kind of set up camp and we had our deputies go out and they offered that individual, hey, let's get you to a shelter. We're willing to transport you and get you there. Give that person the night to get packed up, get things together. Didn't say you had to leave immediately. The next day, that individual was transported to some shelter to help them out. So
I would go along with that. At least
It's a
some
great
grace,
scenario.
Yeah.
some grace period there. So that they have time to get, even if we have to call On Point or
Yeah.
Gateway Mission or something like that, but at least give him, I don't know if we want to put it in hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. But yes, there needs to be You put it beautifully. There needs to be a hook there in case people don't want to,
Right.
right?
I really appreciate the compassion that we all have here. And the community has shown to him. You know, I really do. But at the same time, I've heard from more residents that live in that area. That it's a concern to them that he's there.
Good.
So, yeah, I think I can
Yeah.
go along with what we're saying here.
I will say his behavior, I have not heard that he has been misbehaving in any
No.
way. So, and I have heard from a number of people, and try to walk through the process and also point out that he has been, you know, when people have asked him to move, he's moved. He's not, you know, harassing people. But yeah, it's a tough one. And I think we want to be able to show grace and compassion and help. But, you know, also we just don't have any way now to be able to say, but you really got to move.
Okay.
Right.
All right, I'm based on that, I'm prepared to support, given that there is some latitude in terms of not putting somebody in an unsafe situation. You know, and I wouldn't expect this to happen, but we all know the great story of Glen, where there was a blizzard and every traveler got stuck in Glen. And
Oh, yeah.
And the town had to put people up, you know, make pancakes for them.
Right.
Right.
So I just would want to be careful.
Right.
You and city staff and the sheriffs don't feel like they have to have a super hard line on this, you know, there is a little bit of flexibility. Yes, there is, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, there is a hook, that there is something there, but you know, that we can still show grace and compassion to our fellow human beings, particularly when they're, you know, members of our community.
Right.
You know, and people that have served this country and, you know, for whatever reason, you know, now have issues that makes it more difficult for them to make the decisions that they need to make for their own best interests. And, you know, you're right, winter's coming and that's gonna be an unsafe situation.
Yeah.
So,
And where we are now is there's kind of two paths. One is still connecting him with the gentleman who's been helping him and his caseworker to try to push along that round. The other thing is we have his agreement to post something on Sauglissville Facebook page if anyone in the community has a place for him to rent or live, that the community can certainly provide a solution to. So that's somewhat tricky in that, you know, the city can't take on the function of finding, social services. We aren't set up to do that.
Right.
But we could facilitate his connecting with Birdie to post something, so.
well, and I was pleased to hear that he's now got a phone, the email
He
came
has his
across in his
phone,
phone.
right,
He's got a
and
phone.
you know, the generous folks who've put him on
Yeah,
for.
okay, yeah,
um,
then that, I think, I'm satisfied with that. I do have one more question though, just on the park closing hours. Oval Beach, you know, sunset, you know, at the height of summer, you know, June 21st is 26 p.m. But, you know, my daughter, and all of her peers, you know, they like to go there, you know, there's not a lot for under 21s to do in Saugatuck in the summer. And so they like to gather for sunset, socialize, you know, and like I said, you know, for our young people, there's really not a lot of options. You know, so I was asking her what she thought about a 10 p.m. closing time, and she sent me a, you know, picture of the beach at 9:51 in the summer. And
Right.
you can still see the blue sky. You can still see actually the color. So I would just get my colleagues' viewpoints on maybe if we push that back to 11.
I thought about that as well when I was looking at the packet. I thought for Oval Beach, especially during the summer, and or Mount Malton Park for that matter, why not 11?
Yeah.
I've never
When the
understood.
gate closes.
I've never
Right.
understood why it was set at 10 in the first place. I don't know if there's some underlying reason why, but it never seemed to make sense to me either. And
Well, in the wintertime.
if you go there, by the way, at 9:30, the place is crowded, right? So
Well,
we're taking all these people out.
We went out to see the Northern Lights at like 10:30.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Right.
those all hit way later.
I mean, this is a picture also sent me of like 9:51.
Right.
You know, at
Right.
at summer, so. I that's my thought, that we push that back a little bit.
Anything else, Russ?
Yeah, a few comments on this. I appreciate hearing all this. If I could remember the number of times that Chief Jones came out to the Oval Beach when I was out there, I did exactly the same thing the kids and my daughter did today. In the time she was here, Gardner, it's time to leave. Well, the sun's still up. Time to leave. Beach is closed. That happened to me and my friends numerous times. And so the reason I make that point is because the beach is to be enjoyed, but also it's a park. And if the park's open at later hours, then you have to maintain it, you have to actually patrol it, et cetera. So my question to the manager would be is contact Sergeant Haas and ask him what the schedule is for the deputies to close and open the gate. What are they currently doing? Because even if you put park hours on it, we may not enforce that, but if the gate's closed, then that in essence, that's the only park we have that you have a gate to actually stop people from going in. So I would like to see or confirm with Sergeant Haas, because I believe it's the deputies that open it and close it daily. It's what the current schedule is. I mean, to have people out there until 11 PM at night, I don't have a problem with that from a council standpoint. I think a city standpoint, that seems to be reasonable and I thought it opened before 8 because you've actually got fishermen that go out to the piers before 8 AM. They very well may park their car and get around it somehow. I don't know. So that would be something interesting to see what Sergeant Haas has to say. Maybe the hours adjust during the year to accommodate fishermen and, people who want to go out at late hours, when the sun's staying up later in the sky. So, but again, Oval Beach is the only park we have that we can actually physically close the gate to get in and out of the park.
And real quick, I drove up there about 2 weeks ago or so, about 11:30 at night. It was open.
Yeah, it would be great to confirm with Sergeant.
Yeah,
Haas.
the gate to Oval Beach, yes.
And if I could count the number of times I remember people sleeping in the car on my street because they got drunk and they didn't want to drive home, or a camper, which happens regularly on my street, on Spear Street, I see a lot of campers park, and I know people are sleeping in there. Is that really allowed? It's probably not allowed, but I mean, it's just what people do, right? So I don't think we should ever be in a position of going around knocking on, trailers and saying, hey, you can't sleep in there. That's not the issue. The issue is, for me, is that, and Councilmember Peterson and Councilmember Dean have kind of alluded to this, and Mayor Anderson, is that the city really has a responsibility to protect our assets. And we need to be able to give the tools to our city staff and to our police to be able to take care of situations. I don't want them to have to go down and knock on windows if somebody's sleeping in the car and saying they're too drunk to drive, and kick them out because that puts them into a situation where they don't want to, I'm not concerned about that. That happens. It's happened for years, and it's going to take place. But what I do want to have in place are rules. So when we have, and again, our person down in Wicks Park, I agree with Councilmember Peterson. I don't think we should allow any overnight sleeping or camping in our parks, period. That just doesn't, and any reasonable person on the street would say, well,
Grace, a little bit of grace.
a little bit of grace, of course, but then the question then becomes, if a person's in a park for 2 nights, then the city manager or staff from the city or the police can say, do you have a situation that we need to discuss?
I think that was the intent of what we've been
And
doing.
then a roadmap that the manager or the deputies can follow and say, seems to be a social services situation.
Mhm.
Have a roadmap to exactly know where to go and who to contact and how to follow a process to get the person the help that they need. But the city still needs rules on its parks to be able to say, at some point, yeah, you can't stay here any longer. We have to move you along. This is for the use of everybody, not just one individual. And I've heard a couple of stories from people that, even though the person in the park has been mostly friendly, there's been a couple of times where it's felt a little intimidating to kids who want to go up to the gazebo, and not that he's done anything, but just that's what we want to avoid. And people just expect the city council and the city government. I can't think of a place I've gone where there's not rules on the parks.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
there's one more piece if we're there on that. Completely understand the need to have dogs off beaches, just like geese, because, animal waste can contribute to E. coli outbreaks, and that's a serious thing. Having said that, outside of the summer hours, I would like to hear my colleagues' views on being a little bit more liberal on dogs outside of the summer season. I mean, when none of us want to swim, well, some of us like to cold water, but most of us don't want to swim when it's cold. But a lot of dogs still love to run up and down the beach and swim, well outside the summer months. And I think that might, particularly for our residents, you know, our full-time residents that have dogs, I think, you know, we know a lot of them like to take them down to, you know, particularly the Labradors, you know, throw a ball into the lake and let them retrieve it. I mean, I take my dog to the state park to do that. I don't take her to a beach, but others do, you know, because they don't want to hike in. So I guess I'd like to hear everybody's views on them. And if just blanket no dogs at all at Oval Beach year round is what you guys prefer, or if you think there's some flexibility there outside of the summer months.
Madam Mayor, I agree with that. I think that's an excellent idea. We tried to do it back before and the police were the ones that stopped it. They said the number one call they had to the Oval Beach was dog bites. And so that was why they stopped it, you know, I think stop it during the summer and then it just went on forever. I do have a couple of questions on the things here. Don't we grill out at Oval Beach? Aren't those grills?
I think they don't want you to bring your own grill.
Is there,
But they're not personal.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, and then down on this additional park regulations, skateboarding, injury to park property or employees. Do we need to have something in there that if somebody does something? they can-
That was just the title of the ordinance, so,
Okay.
the ordinance relates to, you know, damaging park property or vegetation and those sorts of things. But, I mean, there's certainly separate, you know, state laws and even, city ordinances related to, assaults and things like that, that would protect us,
Kind
yeah.
of thing. Okay, thank you.
Russ?
Yeah, one other question regarding park hours. I know there had been some discussion when the Village Square Playground was redone. I think we should talk about having at least some type of noticing there regarding park times because there are a number of residential units around the park and generally the park can get used at late hours by people coming home from the bars and so forth. And I've heard stories about some late night noise and I think most people wouldn't even argue to say, you know, the park is open from dawn to dusk, after dusk or night or sometime at night, you know. So that way, if someone doesn't encounter a problem, the police have the authority to say the park's closed.
Mhm.
Keep moving, right? As it stands today, if someone was in an inebriated state, they may say, there's no rules here. I don't see any rules telling me I can't be here at 2 a.m. Just a thought. I think that's especially given the activity and the noise that can be generated there and the surrounding residential properties.
I guess I think just for, you know, enforcement simplicity, I would try wherever possible to make it uniform, you know.
You're right.
You know, for all the parks, whenever possible, I think that makes it easier for staff and for,
Right.
and for, you know, for our contract deputies to sort of just understand, because they're all, you know, they've got to go all over the place. They're like, okay, what are the hours on this one? I mean, obviously you can sign it, but and put signage out, but I think,
Well, and our noise ordinance is 11, so it would make
Yeah.
sense to just tie it to the noise.
Yeah,
ordinance.
I think 11 is good.
So back to dogs.
I don't have a dog in the fight.
You've been waiting.
You're the only one.
However, I am the only one. However, I think it's a great idea. I know people already do it. And to allow it off season, I think would be fine.
Ryan, are dogs allowed on the shoreline all across Lake Michigan?
anyway?
I feel like that's like, just like walkers are allowed along the shoreline,
Up to the high water mark or something.
up to the, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
it could be, yeah, but I'm thinking the state park though, you know, we're supposed to have our dogs on weeds when we're in the state park. Obviously, you get down to the shoreline, you got a dog that likes to swim and retrieve. You're taking the lead off.
Right.
So, yeah.
I don't know if Trent would know off the top of his head whether the public trust doctrine applies to dogs or whether it's just human beings walking along the beach or not, but.
Just curious, because I just.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
you know, if
sorry.
they're driving in the parking lot, you know, then they do have to be in the park at one point before they get to the water.
I think Trent wanted to, yeah, Trent?
I was just gonna say, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but I'm happy to look into it if we think it's something we want to bring to the next meeting.
Necessary.
No, dude, I'm hearing from the council that you're interested in outside of, you know, busier summer times for Oval Beach, allowing dogs on the beach. I want to talk with, you know, Scott Herr about it to see if there's any other unintended consequences that he would be concerned with waste or things like that.
That's fair.
But I certainly will evaluate that as for some updates on Monday. I'm hearing that you're more interested in seeing some closing hours for Oval Beach, Mount Baldhead Park, and then maybe now Village Square at 11 p.m. And maybe looking at whether we need some language to accommodate, fishing, and I'll check with Sergeant Haas. I mean, you know, when they lock the gates, probably depending on call volume and what's going on, and, you know, they probably intend to get there right around when things are closing, but if a call comes in or something else is going on, it may take a bit to get there, kind of a thing, so.
And thinking about the Village Square itself, I mean, people pass through there all the time, and certainly we don't want to restrict that. I think what I'm more concerned about is that people are playing on the playground equipment at 2 AM, and it's not going to be a 10-year-old. It's going to be someone who's been at the sandbar or wherever they were. That's more of the concern. But also to remember that the restrooms get closed. The gates are supposed to be closed, I think, at 11 or midnight. So that might be something to coincide with as well. And as Dogs on the Beach, when you talk with Sergeant Haas, based on what Councilmember Peterson said, we might want to revisit when it wasn't allowed before because of concern about dog bites.
That's what they said.
I'd just be curious to see maybe what their position is from a public safety standpoint.
I can see a bunch of dogs filling those seats at our meeting
I'm surprised they're not here.
to bark in on.
I'll bring that.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'll hear from the dog owners, and particularly outside of summer season. It's one I think a number of full-time residents might be interested in, because I mean, some folks, you know, they just don't have the mobility to hike in, so their dog
Right.
can get a swim, you know, so, you know, it's much more convenient for them to park up, you know, and just go down there and let the dog, you know, get its exercise, because, you know, the best way to tire my dog out is to let him swim, you know, so, yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people do it anyway, and
Right.
you're gonna have an enforcement issue if you don't do it. Let's just, I mean,
Yeah.
we can establish rules to make sure people clean up after their pets and things like that, which is probably easier to enforce than trying to chase everybody off the beach with a dog. And the dogs need places to run and play, and I'm all for it. So.
Just that, do you have what you need?
Yeah, just only so one piece with park hours, well, one, if there's an issue with somebody causing any sort of noise disturbance at a park, whether it's, you know, the playground equipment or somewhere else, I mean, we have ordinances that certainly address that particular concern, but, you know, not a problem to, you know, add in some sort of formal park folder for Village Square. One thing I'm not recommending necessarily for like Wicks Park or even Coughlin Park was establishing necessarily park closure hours, only because I think there are folks that may want to stargaze or may want to, you know, they get out of work late and they want to kind of take a walk along the riverfront.
Right.
Or there's fishermen that maybe
Come
in
over
the
there.
area. And so that was, instead of using park hours at night to also kind of maybe address sleeping on parks concerns, you know, my recommendation was not to go that route. So if you want specific park hours for Coughlin and Wicks, let me know, I guess.
Well, you raise a really good point. You know, there are people that, you know, they're not there to cause trouble, but they'll come to fish at night. Because they can't, you know, they have jobs, they can't work during the day. It's a way for them to unwind and relax. And they,
Mhm.
you know, you see folks come out like after, you know, after losing the park, for example.
Right.
People will set up and, you know, they're law abiding people in the community that are just, you know, night fishing when, you know, sometimes the fishing can be quite good. So I think
Right.
I appreciate your bringing that up, because I don't think that's what we're intending to do.
So really, we just need the gate closed at Oval Beach a little bit later, like 11 at
Yeah.
Oval Beach, gate closed, nothing
That's
more
really-
beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost
Some
impossible.
park hours maybe for the
Yeah.
playground at late at night.
The
to
ones
make
that are
it
kind of
clearer.
contiguous with the river walk, I mean, it's almost impossible to lock it down anyway, so. But I think the rest of the council, I appreciate the discussion on overnight sleeping and camping. I'm comfortable that, you know, we're not creating a hard line that suddenly creates an unsafe situation
Right.
for someone. Okay, I think,
So, and then a sign at the playground, would that be 11 o'clock? Is that what we're talking about?
I would suggest aligning it with the bathroom closing schedule, which is already posted. There's a sign posting that when those gates are supposed to be closed,
Uh-huh.
would be my thought.
And what time would that be?
I don't remember.
What time did the bathrooms close, Ryan? Do you know?
I think they're 10 or 11.
I want to say 11, but
Yeah, I think it's 11.
Having it timed to the noise ordinance just. makes-
Yeah, I think so too.
Agree.
That sounds great.
Yeah. 11 o'clock. So I can't play after 11. So
Right.
right.
No climbing.
I'll make sure no more,
climbing,
no more 2 in the morning
Yeah.
jumping in.
Anything else? And Ryan?
Before we go, I want to throw one last thing, going back to the issue of homelessness. One of the things the city, so that there is some kind of grace period, Gateway Mission was tossed out to me by several of the people that I talked to about an option for But, oh, nope, nope, go away. My daughter-in-law FaceTiming. So anyway,
Cut
that,
her up.
yeah. Anyway, they said that is always an option if
Okay.
they're for immediate emergency piece that we could maybe work with somebody at Gateway Mission.
Good. Awesome. Good discussion. Thanks, everybody. We'll move on now to the proposal for updated historic district signage. I see that Tim Stryker is on Zoom. And that is on page 19. So Ryan, you want to tee that up?
Yeah, if it's all right, Mayor, since Chair Striker's here, I'll let him kind of tee this up. They've been talking about this for some time and you have my memo and kind of, my thoughts on maybe, where this project should maybe fall, but, I understand there's the arguments on both sides of this and certainly there's a need to update our historic district sign. There's no disagreement there, so.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Yeah, you bet. Greetings, council members. Just a couple bits of backstory on this. Every year, the Historic District Commission kind of goes through in November, December, sets the goals, strategies, norms, behaviors for what we want to accomplish or what we think is important for the following year. So this has kind of been on our radar for a few years. The signs that are at the two different entrances to the community marking the passage into the historic district are sort of basic Department of Transportation signs. Like in most historic districts, I'd say in half historic districts that I know about, they sort of follow this general rule. They're sort of official and very functional. In the other half, there's some sense of entrance or ceremony in going into the historic district. I think the view of our commission is we'd like to have a little more of the latter. We're proud of the historic district. We want people to know they're going through it, so they pay attention to what's there and celebrate what we're trying to preserve and celebrate. So the idea was evolve these signs into something a little more celebratory, a little more noticeable. I think a lot of people, even some commissioners, didn't even really know we had signage or couldn't remember where they were. So the idea was we reached out to Concept A, which does work for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They do lovely work. The brief is, I think, attached of what we asked them to consider and do. I kind of have a strong point of view on this that, well, there's a consideration that if you all are pursuing some sort of branding project that's a little broader for the community, that this would be kind of a logical time to do this. But I have a strong point of view that these signs should be evergreen. They absolutely shouldn't feel like a brand campaign, but they should coordinate with the overall efforts of what's being done. And I think there's real synergy in doing that. So Concept A, for instance, is really good at sort of walking the line between something that's for today and has a lifespan and engages in a certain way versus something that works with those things and is evergreen that will last beyond that. And I think we're in the latter zone. We want this to sort of, if you squint, it sort of feels like other things you've seen and experienced related to our community, but it feels sort of in and of itself. I don't think, I'm sort of shocked at I think it's a very reasonable price of what they're charging us. That does not include fabrication of whatever we come up with, but the brief doesn't sort of suggest that we're going to have gilded wood carved fancy signs. It would still be roughly the same form factor, the same size. It would just sort of present a little more professionally and a little bit more with a little bit more of a celebration.
Thanks, Tim. Questions for Tim? Comments?
Mayor Anderson, as your city council representative to the Historic District Commission, thank you, Chair Straker. I completely agree with the recommendation and support this. I think it does, and Chairman Straker can say it far more eloquently than me, but this should be something that should be a bit different from a branding because it is something that represents our community, and evergreen is a great word. So thank you very much. I fully support this approach.
Yeah, I support it as well. I absolutely agree with it not going along with the branding. It helps it to stick out and signify it more rather than, because, you know, once we get into the branding, and that's all gonna kind of meld into everything, right? And so this is something that tells you specifically, it's done in those state colors, you know, it looks very, you know,
Looks like a state park.
yeah, the park colors, right? So it looks like a state of Michigan style, you know, standard style. So, yeah.
Joe, you were gonna say something?
No, I'm complete agreement. Let's make it unique. Let's make it so it stands out and people know where they're going when they're entering the historic district, because it's important that they do. And I agree, it could blur it if we try and tie it too closely to whatever our brand looks like. So fully supportive.
Anybody else? That's fine with me. Okay, this will be on the agenda on Monday. Thanks, Tim, for joining us.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thanks you guys. See you later.
Okay, and that brings us to D, which I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. So Nikki, thanks for, Ryan, anything you want to say before Nikki? Nikki,
Further tee it up.
it's all you.
All right, so we had a discussion about splitting the water and sewer fund, which has always just been one big pile of money. And with the upcoming lead line servicing, all of that that's coming up, we decided that we wanted to be prepared in case there were questions about how much of this water money was received and used for water, how much for sewer. So I went to a lot of trouble to split it. And I'm ready to do that, but we're bringing it to you now to get the resolution, get your permission, your authorization to do so. And do you have any questions?
It makes sense, Nikki.
It's an accounting change.
Yeah.
right?
It's a county
Yeah,
change. It
yeah.
makes sense. I don't have any questions. When I read through it, it made sense to me.
Russ?
Yeah, it makes sense. Question I always will ask is why haven't we done this before? Maybe it was just I don't want to say an oversight, but just had thought to do it. So just that's more of a, why haven't we done this sooner? And you probably, Nikki, haven't been here long enough to answer that question, but.
I could,
So maybe Ryan's got.
I think, you know, some of it's, you know, we haven't, you know, certainly there's been special assessments or times where we've brought in dollars specifically for a water or sewer purpose and the, you know, the restrictions on those dollars have always been there, and that dollars brought in for water purposes always have to be spent on water, same for sewer. But now that we're collecting a specific capital improvement charge for water, we want to make sure that it's clear that those dollars are only being used for water purposes. And eventually, you know, we're looking at the same thing for having a capital improvement charge for sewer. We want to make sure that we have a separate account to show what those dollars are going to be used for. And as Nikki indicated, as we, you know, do further projects that may involve grant dollars, we want to make sure that we have real good, clear accounting and that nobody's questioning that we're using dollars in an inappropriate way is one thing, is one piece of it. And Nikki actually went back. I mean, I think she put in her memo, and I know this wasn't in your packet, so we were still finalizing one last key piece, but you know, she went back and looked at 18 years worth of how has water and sewer dollars been spent. Because we wanted to make sure that nobody was even questioning how we were allocating the fund balance, right? We wanted to make sure that folks were comfortable that again, we weren't using dollars in a way that we shouldn't be. So she went back several years looking at revenues and expenses and looking at how much interest should be applied to those. And then obviously what we received in water dollars last year. And there's the approximations that she's provided in the resolution. And the reason why there are approximations is we have to still get some final audited numbers for our audit for last year. So that gives us a little flexibility in case things need to be tweaked a little bit. But the concept is there, and you as part of your budget approve those separate funds already, as far as, you know, we just need your permission to allocate the fund balance.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thanks, Nikki. Thank you for being so diligent and getting the numbers right. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. That takes us to the second public comment period. Is there anyone online who wishes to make a public comment? All right, seeing none, that takes us to council comments. Chris, you want to kick us off?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I really appreciated the conversations we had. I think it's good. As I said, this is a very emotional, complex issue. And the part about him being a former resident and knowing a lot of people kind of changed the whole tone for the city council. But I think what we've got now is the ability to protect our parks,
Mhm.
give our police people a great path to go down to, and maintain our park assets. That's
It's great to have your expertise as we experience. Russ?
Yeah, just good conversation today. Appreciate it. I did get a text yesterday from a resident who, and I saw a post on Facebook of all places, surprisingly enough, something on Facebook. There was a person that was out front of City Hall yesterday that was, she had a chair set up with a little tote or something.
yeah.
And it didn't even really register with me. It said something about come and see me or something like that. Well, what I learned from this person that sent me the text is that apparently she was asking people if they wanted their palm read. And she was basically getting in the way of people who were stopping to read the Singapore sign, which happens a lot. And so the question came up about, was anybody aware of this? And, you know, that's, I don't think, it wasn't a busking situation. Someone actually trying to sell a service and actually, I don't want to say accosting people, but creating a bit of a uncomfortable situation for people that are walking by City Hall. So I don't know if that was, you were made aware of that, but just, yeah, so.
That was the second time that I saw this individual out there and charging for a specific fee, for $5 and using the front of the, city hall. So I was afraid to say anything.
This was
Yeah.
yesterday, you said?
Yeah, I was also given the person.
All day, yeah.
Yeah, I was also given the person's name.
The day before, there was a lady playing a recorder outside, is that?
Same lady.
Yeah,
I'll keep an eye on her. I picked on her a bunch when I was here, I think yesterday, but the day before, I didn't see her. I saw her playing because I was peeking out, making sure that's what she was doing, but I'll keep an eye on her. I didn't see what you're saying.
I had seen that also specific that she was advertising on Facebook that psychic readings,
That is what.
palm readings for $5, meet me downtown Saugatuck City.
Yeah, that's
So-
what I saw. It was right in front of City Hall, a chair with a tote on it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's not necessarily busking, right?
With the busking, the logic behind the busking ruling apply, or is it?
I don't know.
different?
Busking is that you're not asking for a specific amount and giving a service, you're just putting a ad out, but is that the same? I don't know.
Well, you know, I think about Steve Williford, who does massage behind Uncommon Ground. You know, he
That's
actually
private
charges
property.
people. Right, and it's private property, but he does business on private property. And I'm just thinking Steve would not be allowed to do it out on the sidewalk.
That's
Even
true.
if he was asking for donations. So I view this as being a bit of a different situation than a busker, personally.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll keep an eye out for it and address it.
Let's
Thank
get
you.
your fortune says first.
Yeah, we're gonna get my palm read.
Just disappointed that we weren't able to do the Dark Sky Initiative event on Tuesday. The weather was just not cooperating. Speaking of dark skies, the clouds came in and we couldn't see anything. So the organizers are hoping to reschedule that for the spring. So hopefully we'll have better skies for that. That's all.
Just hoping for better weather for Halloween and hoping to see a lot of trick or treaters up on the hill.
Oh, well, we'll all be here Monday, but I wanted to thank everyone, all of the business owners and that donated and all the folks that participated at the Make-A-Wish benefit at the Dunes Resort last Saturday. We raised just shy of $10,000 to make the wish of a special child that will be selected in Allegan County. It's a great event. I've done it for many years with the guys at the Dunes there, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. I even have a war wound from it. But also want to remind, I think it's a really neat event going on at the Riverside Cemetery with the Saugatuck Township as well as the Saugatuck Douglas History Center, where they're going to be bringing back to life William Butler and all of the folks that helped founded the city that are buried over there. And they'll be talking about their stories of when they were here, historical stories. At this Friday at Riverside Cemetery. It starts at 5 till 7 p.m. and tickets are $5. Money goes to the Saugatuck Douglas History Center. I'd like to see you all there. Russ, you said you're
I'll be
going.
there.
I'll be there as well. I'm excited for it. I donated the decorations to Daniel. You know, I've got a whole closet full of fall decorations, so helped him to gather those up. And then also at the annual Halloween parade, you will see me along with Becky and a couple drivers in a cardboard makeup of a interurban bus dressed like crash head dummies. And we've got the costumes, and so we're super excited. It'll be the first time that Interurban has ever been in the parade. And we'll be right at the front. Aaron was nice enough to put us as the second entry. And so we'll be right at the front. And so we hope we see everybody there. It's a great event to this town. It brings so much business to our businesses here. Our bed and breakfast, our restaurants, everybody gets filled and everybody has a great night. And also a reminder that we will have free interurban shuttle service. Go to our Facebook page to find the specific loops, but there will be a loop from Saugatuck to Douglas, as well as a loop from and a loop from Douglas going from the brewery in different spots throughout Douglas, and those will be free rides after I think it's after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Might be 7 o'clock. But go to Interurban, go to the Facebook page to find out when the free rides start. But they'll be through the evening and we will be open till midnight on Saturday. So.
Great meeting. Thanks, everyone. It's been a great fall. Weather's been unbelievable. Talked to a couple business owners that say it's probably been one of the best falls they've ever seen revenue wise in terms of all the tourism that's just continued. So it's good to see our season expand. Glad to see we put some guardrails in, you know, for our parks, with the ability to execute some discretion on enforcement. I think that's really good. And I love the idea of expanding Oval Beach access, right, either through longer hours and letting our four-legged friends get out there in the off season. So I think that's a really good step forward. We're just making better use of the assets that we have. I think it's a good thing. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all on Monday.
Great. Well, I can't wait to go home and tell Annie that she can go to Oval Beach. No, I can't let her off leash because she sees a deer and she goes, but I think that's great.
Your control right there.
There you go. That's right. You know, we could get a contract for.
Seller services.
Anyway, good meeting, good discussion. Appreciate you all. And with that, who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Meeting or motion carries.